the first man to weaponize flight, soaring higher and pushing limits people thought weren't humanly possible. Moments of impossible athleticism may grace Twitter every day today, but back in the 70s, the number 17 member of my 25 greatest players in NBA history list, Julius Dr. J. Erving, was revolutionizing the game of basketball one leap at a time. Julius Winfield Erving II was born February 22, 1950 in East Meadow, New York. Erving grew up in a single-parent household with his older sister and younger brother. His childhood was very common for the time as Erving spent countless hours playing football, basketball, and baseball with local friends. Unlike his friends though, Erving was exceptionally driven and created vertical jumping drills with one goal in mind: to fly. After displaying flashes of athleticism and talent at Roosevelt High School, Erving was down to St. John's and UMass for his college decision. Erving chose to leave the city and head to UMass for the college experience. While there, a series of moments would change his life forever. Erving quickly dominated the freshman team's season and was ready to make an impact on the school's main roster once he became eligible as a sophomore. Early in his sophomore year, though, Erving experienced tragedy. After a long battle with a form of lupus that really impacted his mobility his entire life, Julius's biggest fan, his little brother, Marky, passed away at the age of 16. Erving would promise from that moment that he would complete Marky's dream for him by playing professional basketball. By the end of his junior season, Erving had averaged over 26 points and 20 rebounds in his 2 seasons, and dominated the competition. In that offseason, Erving was approached by the Virginia Squires of the ABA, who were in desperate need of young talent. Taking advantage of the fact the NBA didn't allow players to be drafted until their class graduated college, Erving agreed to head to the ABA on the condition of his mother he would still get the college degree she dreamed of for him. Erving signed a 7-year, $500,000 deal and kept his word, graduating from UMass 15 years later. Erving was an instant star in the ABA. Back in the 70s, college basketball was in the midst of a ban against dunking thanks to Kareem, and it clearly held back the now fully unleashed Doctor, as he was famously known. The ABA, with its new rules like a 3-point shot, with a goal of freeing up the game for its stars, caused an amount of spacing and fast-break basketball built for the superior athlete that Erving was. Dr. J was the kind of athlete that it didn't matter what era he played in, he would have stood out. Following his rookie season, Erving was less than thrilled with the suspect Squires organization, and seeked to make a move to the NBA with Atlanta. One problem: Erving had been drafted by Milwaukee a few months earlier after his college class graduated. In one of the most bizarre lawsuits in sports history, 3 teams believed they were owed Dr. J's services. NBA Commissioner J. Walter Kennedy ruled that the Bucks owned Erving's rights via the draft, and then Judge Edward Nieher issued an injunction that prohibited him from playing for any team other than the Squires. After finding out the agent who had lured him from college was actually employed by the Squires and got him to sign a deal below market value, Erving was officially done with the club and forced his way out after that season. 2 seasons into his career, despite the complete and utter chaos off the floor with the poor franchise that was the Squires and his contract, Dr. J was still taking the league over. In his 3rd season, a move back home to New York to play for the Nets took him from a star to a superstar. Erving was named league MVP and led the Nets to a championship in just his 3rd pro season. By the end of the next season, Erving's star power had surmounted anyone in the league, and the NBA took notice. The league was in the midst of a bizarre time and needed star power. Throw in the reality the ABA was draining their talent, and the league needed a merge. Luckily for the NBA, the ABA was on the definition of thin ice financially and had literally no leverage. Denver, New York, San Antonio, and Indiana joined for a cost of $3.2 million per team. In his 5th season in the league, Erving would lead the Nets to their 2nd title in 3 years. The Nets were rewarded with a separate $4.3 million tax to pay to the Knicks for infringing on their territorial rights. In a landmark decision that changed the league forever, the Nets sold Erving to the Philadelphia 76ers in order to avoid inevitable bankruptcy. The Knicks, believe it or not, were offered Erving but chose the money. a mistake that took a perennial contender to the bottom of the league for a decade. Though it was a bizarre route, the Doctor had arrived in the NBA. In his first season in the league, Erving would lead the Sixers all the way to the NBA Finals. There, though, a team of individual talents combusted spectacularly against a well-oiled machine led by Bill Walton from Portland. This playoff meltdown would actually set the table for the better part of the next 6 seasons for Dr. J and the Sixers. Erving, being the incredibly nice guy he was, often deferred in the biggest moments, and often didn't take enough shots, costing the Sixers when it mattered most. Probably the most famous example of this came in the 1980 Finals, when league MVP Kareem went down with an injury before Game 6 in Philly. Needing a great performance from their star, Erving was only good, scoring 27 points. The reason the Sixers needed greatness was because on the other side, a rookie by the name of Magic Johnson put in arguably the best performance in league history to steal the title with Kareem not even in Philadelphia, as he was home in LA, resting for the inevitable Game 7. The next season, Erving would come back with a vengeance and win the league MVP. In Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, though, he was outplayed by another all-time great, as Larry Bird led the Celtics to the finals. The 2 losses had been the epitome of the Doctor's NBA career. He was good, but somehow his team wasn't good enough. He was seen as a great player, an incredible watch, but not someone capable of winning in the world's best league. All that changed though in 1983, when the Sixers traded for fellow former ABA Moses Malone. Together, Erving and Malone would run roughshod over the league, going 65-17 in the regular season before going 12-1 in the playoffs. It was a legacy-cementing run that guaranteed Erving would be remembered correctly in the halls of basketball history. Julius Erving had an incredibly unique career. He spent a majority of his athletic peak in the ABA, and although the league was at the very least on par with the NBA talent-wise, respect-wise they just never were going to come close. Despite the lack of respect, the league trailblazed a new era of free-flowing basketball that would become the basis for today's modern game. The player that spearheaded that movement was Dr. J. Erving was the first real star to defy gravity and bring the street to the court. Just think about how truly dominant Kareem was, and Dr. J is the inarguable defining cultural player of the generation. His dunks captivated 20,000 people in a way few, if any, have been able to recapture since. Before LeBron had no regard for human life, the Doctor had hops that made it seem like he was trying to explore other worlds to find life beyond humanity. If you love basketball for what it is now, there's a man who deserves your appreciation, and his name is Julius Erving.